Good morning, friends. Today we will be discussing certain important questions in acid-base disorders and cancer. We'll see some questions which have come in the university exam. Now, in the topic acid-base disorders, some questions which have repeatedly come is define metabolic acidosis, what are its causes, and what are the biochemical findings that we see in metabolic acidosis. Then differentiate between metabolic and respiratory acidosis, and also respiratory acidosis and its causes. In the topic cancer, the type of questions which have come is name two tumor suppressor genes and examples of anti-oncogene. As you know, anti-oncogene is also the same as tumor suppressor genes. Then you have got a short note on oncogenes, or they have also what has come is the proto-oncogenes. So I'll be discussing the questions that have come, starting with metabolic acidosis. Metabolic acidosis, if they have asked you to define it. So a fall in blood pH due to decrease in bicarbonate levels is called metabolic acidosis. This decrease in bicarbonate levels may be due to increased production of acids, like in uncontrolled diabetes mellitus, in starvation, where there's excessive production of ketoacids. So for these acids, when they are increased, it has to be buffered, and it's buffered by utilizing the base component, that is bicarbonate. The base component of the bicarbonate buffer, bicarbonate, is used to buffer the extra acids which are being formed. So because of this, the concentration of bicarbonate will fall, giving rise to a bicarbonate deficit. And this results in what is known as metabolic acidosis. Metabolic acidosis can also be due to loss of bicarbonate in the urine, and this can occur in conditions like renal tubular dysfunction and from the GI tract in severe diarrhea. Now, metabolic acidosis is of two types. You have the high anion gap, or HAGMA, or the normal anion gap, or NAGMA. You must be familiar now with this diagram or figure. It shows the different conditions and what happens to the anion gap. The normal state, you find that when the sodium and chloride and bicarbonate are within normal limits, you find that the anion gap is 12 in the first case, which is within the normal range. So this is the normal ion distribution. Now in the second case, case B, what do you find? You find that there is metabolic acidosis due to acid accumulation. So because of that, the base component is being used to buffer the excess acid which is being produced, and therefore in this second figure you find that there is a decrease in the bicarbonate level. When there is a decrease in the bicarbonate level, there will be an increase in the anion gap. So that condition is known as the high anion gap metabolic acidosis. In the third condition, that is case C, what do you find? That the metabolic acidosis is due to a loss of bicarbonate. It could be a loss of bicarbonate in the urine or in the GI tract. And this decrease in the bicarbonate levels have resulted in a normal anion gap, but it may be compensated by an increase in the level of chlorides. So this case C is known as normal anion gap metabolic acidosis. Now you are asked the question, what are the causes of metabolic acidosis? There are the clinical conditions which cause metabolic acidosis. Now the clinical condition which causes HAGMA, or high anion gap metabolic acidosis, is diabetic ketoacidosis, starvation ketosis, lactic acidosis, and renal failure. Now the one which causes the normal anion gap metabolic acidosis could be severe diarrhea, when there's loss of bicarbonate through the GI tract, or renal tubular acidosis. Now, what are the biochemical parameters? What are the changes that we see in the biochemical parameters? Now, definitely, when you do a blood gas analysis, you find that there is a decrease in the level of bicarbonate. There will be a decrease in the level of pH. Ketone bodies may be seen if there is either diabetic ketoacidosis or starvation ketoacidosis, and lactic acidosis may be also, that is, lactic acidosis may be, lactic acid may also get elevated. Also, it is good to monitor the level of potassium. That has to be monitored closely and corrected if there is a change in the level of potassium. Now, the other condition which has come in the university exam is the respiratory acidosis. So first I'll talk about what is respiratory acidosis. This is exactly the opposite of metabolic acidosis. We find that there is an increase in the level of carbonic acid. So there are two components of the bicarbonate buffer. In metabolic acidosis, there is a deficit in the bicarbonate levels, whereas in respiratory acidosis, there is an increase in the level of carbonic acid. This could be due to decreased elimination of carbon dioxide, and this results in an elevation of partial pressure of carbon dioxide. That is, the PCO2 levels will be elevated, and if you look at the ratio of bicarbonate to carbonic acid, it will be less than 20, and here also the pH is decreased. What is the mechanism causing this respiratory acidosis? It may be either due to breathing air containing abnormally high levels of carbon dioxide, or condition in which elimination of carbon dioxide through the lungs is retarded. So in the uncompensated phase, you find that there is a disproportionate increase in carbonic acid. Partial pressure of carbonic acid is increased and the ratio is decreased. So these are the typical changes that we see in the biochemical parameters. You find that there is an increase in carbonic acid. It is reflected by an increase in the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. pH is decreased and the ratio of carbonic acid or bicarbonate to carbonic acid is decreased. What are the causes of respiratory acidosis? This acute respiratory acidosis is seen in when there is reduced alveolar function, reduced alveolar respiratory function. And this is usually seen in cases of pneumonia, in cases of pulmonary fibrosis or pulmonary edema. Second cause may be there is an obstruction to the removal of carbon dioxide from the alveoli, and this could be seen in chronic obstructive lung disease or in asthma. Or there could be a depression of the respiratory center. So the third type is when there is a depression of the respiratory center due to overdose of sedatives, that is sleeping tablets, or due to overdose of narcotics, or it could be due to administration of excessive anesthesia. And damage to the central nervous system like trauma, inflammation, chest wall injury, all these can cause an respiratory acidosis and an increase in the level of pH or carbonic acid. So with that, you should be able to write a nice note on respiratory acidosis. And since I have talked about both the conditions, metabolic acidosis and respiratory acidosis, you should be able to draw a table comparing both of these, metabolic acidosis and respiratory acidosis. Next, we come to the next topic, that is cancer. One of the questions which has been asked in the university exam are, what are proto-oncogenes? So proto-oncogenes are regulatory genes, and the products of many of these proto-oncogenes are polypeptide growth factors. Okay, for example, the cis gene produces platelet-derived growth factor, which is commonly used in normal wound healing. Okay, the product may also act as receptors for growth factors, like for example, in the case of herb B, It produces receptor for epidermal growth factor. Now, the proto-oncogenes are usually under the control of regulatory genes and is expressed only when required. All right. So, if you are now let's look at the definition of both. So, the proto-oncogenes are normal cellular genes that affect growth and differentiation. So, they are usually represented by capital C ONC, that C-onc, that is, they are cellular oncogenes, okay? Or SCSRC, cellular proto-oncogene. Whereas what are oncogenes? They are genes whose products are involved with neoplastic transformation. So the oncogenes are genes, their products are involved with neoplastic transformation, means it is involved with cancer. So they are usually represented as V, so representing the viral gene, viral SRC gene, or the viral ONC, V-onc or VSRC. So in this figure you can see a cancer-causing agent can affect a proto-oncogene which is present in the normal cell and activate it to produce an activated oncogene. This activated oncogene then causes cancer. Now, what are the products of the oncogene? One of the products of oncogene is the protein tyrosine kinase. Now, more than 50% of oncogenes produce this enzyme, and this causes abnormal phosphorylation. Now, another product are receptors for certain growth factors like epidermal growth factor, myeloid growth factors are transmembrane proteins with tyrosine kinase activity. So the products of another product of oncogene are receptors for certain growth factors which carry the activity of tyrosine kinase. Then thirdly, they may be GTP binding proteins. For example, the RAS oncogene produces GTP binding proteins which are seen in human cancers. Now they may be nuclear proteins. So the products of the MYC oncogene, FOS or MYB oncogenes are nuclear proteins which modifies cell growth. Now the Rao sarcoma virus, if you look at the genome of this virus, it's a retrovirus and it contains mainly 4 genes. It has the GAG gene which codes for group specific antigens of the virus. It has a Pol gene which codes for the enzyme reverse transcriptase. It has the ENV gene which codes for glycoproteins which are part of the viral envelope. And it has the SRC gene which is a sarcoma causing gene. Now the product of this SRC gene is a protein. So I told you the product of an oncogene, more than 50% of the product is the enzyme tyrosine kinase. So the product of SRC is a protein, tyrosine kinase, which is found to be responsible for cellular transformation. Now this table I had given you earlier also, it gives you what is the oncogene or proto-oncogene, what is its oncogenic product. Like for CIS, the oncogenic product is a growth factor, platelet-derived growth factor, and what is the type of cancer which is associated with this oncogene or proto-oncogene. For example, ERB-A, it is a growth factor receptor. So it is a transforming growth factor receptor 1 for ERB-A and ERB-B1, and it's responsible for causing colon cancer or lung cancer. So these products may be growth factors, it may be growth factor receptors, they may be signal transducing proteins. I told you it could be GTP binding proteins, or they may have this enzyme activity tyrosine kinase. So this is also another question which has come, to name certain oncogenes or proto-oncogenes and give the oncogenic specific oncogenic product of that particular oncogene or proto-oncogene, and the type of cancer it produces. The next question which has come in this area is the tumor suppressor gene. Now, the tumor suppressor gene will produce a protein product that normally suppresses cell growth or cell division. So, it is normally involved with the regulating the cell cycle, and it's involved with apoptosis. Now, both the name anti-oncogenes also is the same as the tumor suppressor genes. So, tumor suppressor genes are also called as anti-oncogenes. So, it brings about the normal regulation of cell growth or cell division. But what happens when this gene is mutated? This results in the inhibitory effect of the cell growth or cell division. So there is an inactivation of growth control mechanisms, and this can result in certain type of tumors. Now, you have often asked, give examples of tumor suppressor genes. Sometimes you are asked, give examples of anti-oncogenes, or give 2 examples of tumor suppressor genes. Now, the 2 main widely studied tumor suppressor genes are the retinoblastoma gene, or the RB gene, or the P53 gene. So, these are the 2 main tumor suppressor genes. So, this figure very nicely shows what happens. The tumor suppressor gene is normally involved in regulating cell growth. So, cell division is under control. But if it becomes mutated, if this tumor suppressor gene gets mutated, what happens? It is unable to regulate cell growth, and so their cell division becomes, there is extensive proliferation of the cells, as you see in cancer. If you are asked specifically about the retinoblastoma gene, this tumor suppressor gene is located on chromosome 13q14, and it's mutated in many forms of cancer. It encodes a growth inhibitory phosphoprotein which is known as the PRP protein. Okay, this was one of the first tumor suppressor genes which was discovered, and the mutation of this gene can result in human tumors. Most common type is the retinoblastomas. Now, a well-studied tumor suppressor gene is the P53 gene. The P53 gene is located on chromosome 17, and it prevents the multiplication of cells which have been genetically altered. So, when the DNA of the normal cell is damaged by any carcinogenic agent, it causes the activation of the P53 protein. Now, the product of this P53 is a nuclear phosphoprotein of 53 kilodaltons. So, the P53 binds specific sequences in double-stranded DNA, and it acts as a regulator. So, there is inhibition of mitotic activity. So, it binds to various elements of and inhibits cell division, and it prevents the cell to enter the G1 phase transiently, that is for some time, so that the repair mechanisms can operate. And those genes which have been damaged, and these cannot be repaired by inbuilt systems, they promote apoptosis of such genes. So the product of P53 is a nuclear phosphoprotein of 53 kilodaltons, and the role of this P53 is it will select those genes which have been damaged genetically. It will try to repair those genes by transiently preventing the cell to enter the G1 phase, and so that the repair mechanisms can occur. And then if repair is not possible, then what happens? These damaged genes are then reserved for apoptosis. So this figure very elegantly shows what happens. That is, when cells have minor damage that can be repaired, the cell activity is altered, gene function is suspended, the gene is repaired, and the cells are repaired. That is the role of the P53. But if these agents cause too much damage to the genes, then what happens, which is irreparable, then the cells move on to these genes are reserved for apoptosis. So this finishes off the how discussion on how to answer these questions in the acid-base disorders as well as in cancer, with the important questions that have come in both the topics. Thank you.